Alright, so we are preheating the oven to 425. And we have gathered all the ingredients. We're going to use a ready-made pie crust in a kind of deeper dish pie pan. We have a whole onion chop. We're not going to use all of it. That's why it's in here. We have bacon. You're supposed to use about 12 strips. If I can put the original recipe, I just kind of do it by heart now, but by memory, I mean. But I don't usually use quite that much. Usually people use that cheese. I don't like Swiss cheese, but I use this one. But you can use Swiss. Half and half. We use fat-free half and half. And we need 4 eggs. We need 2 cups of this, 2 cups of half and half, about 1 cup of cheese, like I said, 12 of this. I only need about a half a small onion, third of a medium onion. Depends on how much onion you like, I guess. And 1 of these pie crusts and 4 eggs. And then I usually put some sort of little bit of seasoning in it. Nothing with salt, because this has salt, this has salt, and not a salt lover and don't need it. I think today I'll use this. This is a salt-free Southwest Chipotle Mrs. Dash kind of seasoning. And I'll give that a try. It's brand new. I have a couple of them. I think they were like 2 for $1 a while back and kind of forgot about them. But basically pepper, even cayenne pepper, but black pepper for sure usually I put in them, and skip the salt. But let's give it a little bit of pizzazz. Okay, so the first step is to unroll the pie crust into the pan. Easy peasy. When I use these, they almost always have some cracks, so I just kind of mush over them and get those cracks closed up before I fill them. Oven's ready. Alright, you're probably going to hear a dog eating in the background. Next step is to cut the bacon. I like to cut it chopped up. And so I just do just little slices of it. Just straight through. This is all layers of all the bacon that's left. There happen to be 12 left. I am going to cull it a little though. I usually do that before, but just for the sake of the video, I'm going to do it after. But I'm going to cull out some of the, like if it's almost all fat, I'm going to take that out of there. So like I'm saving this little piece of it, but this is going to go away. And one end of the bacon like this, as you can see, it's very fatty. The side doesn't look all the way through, so I'm definitely just going to cull this whole end, because that is just fat. I used to think, well, maybe that's like white meat. It's fat. But, so let me get doing this. Well, I switched from my fancy Cutco knife, which I always thought was a really nice knife, to this that I just bought at Aldi, a set of them. And it is really blowing through it much better. There's no sawing required. It just really, well, I say that and then it did it. Okay, here we go. I didn't have the right angle on it, but it just really cuts through nicely. Faster, easier. Yeah, and I also cut the bacon, broke it into 2 piles so it wasn't quite as thick. I am going to have to trim a little bit of this. I don't trim all the fat off because that is what bacon is, right? But I do want to cut down on some that are only fat. Okay, so I'm just doing just a little bit of final culling. And now I have my bacon. And I'm going to throw it. I have a skillet heating over here where I'm going to brown it. Now I used to cook the whole strips of bacon and then chop it up, but I think this works better. So let's go do that. Let's go put it in the pan. The pan is heated and it has been sprayed with like Pam. Well, it is Pam actually. last few pieces. I do want some of the fat because that helps it, you know, fry. So I'm going to try to do this and not get anything greasy on my camera. So I have it at about 7.5, which is kind of medium high, I guess. I started on that, but then I will move it down to like 6 or something. Yeah, I'm just going to brown this, and these will separate a bit. They won't be it won't be a big chunk like that. It'll, you know, because that's, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but that's many layers of bacon, really. The more it cooks, the more it falls. Ooh, that smells good. I normally would have my fan on, but you wouldn't be able to hear. You should be able to hear dogs growling and crunching. They both wanted the kibble dish. See, it's even falling apart now. It's separating. So instead of, I have initially, when I started cutting it this way, separating all the pieces of bacon out and then cutting them, that's actually harder. When you got it in like maybe 4 to 6 layers of bacon, I find it much easier to cook, or to cut. Alright, so I'm just going to continue doing this until it's finished, and then I'll show you the next step. Oh, and here's my cold fat. Yeah, that's a lot of fat that is not going to be in our food today. Garbage can time. If I was a good Southern cook, I would save that. What I like about these pie crusts is that you can keep them in the refrigerator, or if you buy the ones in the pan that are already, you keep them in the freezer, and I don't know, they just break apart and stuff. I like these. They're convenient. I used to make my own, but it's a lot of mess for, yeah, it's a little better, but not enough for me. Okay, so I'm going to start while the bacon is still cooking. I'm starting with 4 eggs. I like to break them into my measuring cup so that if anything's bad or I get shells, I can get them out and it doesn't go into my mixing bowl. All right, next step is the half and half, and that'll be 2 cups. Okay, so we're going to add a little seasoning now. The bacon is getting close to done. Look how brown that is. It needs just a little bit more. And then we have our mixture, which I'm going to whisk. Oops, don't want to get out of the bowl. I'm doing it while looking through the camera lens. This is my husband's favorite kind of quiche. I think I'm going to reach over and turn the bacon off. This is my husband's favorite kind of quiche. I really like making it with breakfast sausage, pork sausage, and the different colors of bell peppers, the orange, yellow, and red. I really like that. That's my favorite. But this is, you know, kind of a variation of quiche Lorraine. But like I said, I don't really use, if I had Swiss cheese, I would use it, but it's not my favorite. All right. That's done. So we're just going to set that aside until we're ready for it. And because my husband is super picky about anything with the slightest amount of grease going down our drains, I have put like 4 paper towels on a paper plate so that all these items can be put into the garbage can and that none of the grease will go into down the drain. I am going to retain some of the grease though to cook the onion in. So let's get the bacon draining. Okay, so the bacon got it nice and brown. I cook it till it's not burnt, but you know, if you left it on a minute longer, it might. And then I have left just a little bit of oil, maybe a little more than I needed, in the pan for the onions. Not a lot, but just a little bit to cover the bottom, especially since there's chunks of bacon that might make things stick. And then the rest is here, and I'll put that in the fridge. And sometimes I use that when I'm making dog food. Yeah, we have one picky eater that we have to entice. And bacon grease seems to do that. Okay. Hubby likes a lot of onion, but you don't want to overpower a quiche. And the onions do melt down to a lot less starch with this amount. With something like this when you sweated them. But I'm going to go a little further than sweating them. I'm going to not get to caramelizing them, but I'm definitely getting to cook them. Because the reason I do this is I don't want them to make my quiche watery. It can do a couple things. It can either make it hard to set up, or it can also kind of ruin the crust. So I am going to definitely get them transparent. Okay, I think they're just about done. I still want them to have just a little bit of solidness to them. I don't want them to just waste away to nothing. Funny, hubby walked in a while ago and said, "Oh, it smells so good in here," because he smelled the bacon. But I think the onion, turn off the stove. I think the onion smells even better. My mother-in-law used to complain about the smell of fried or grilled or onions. She thought it smelled like a carnival. All right, so I'm going to put these on top of the bacon to drain. Not really on top of the bacon, to make a little space for the onions. So you can see there's not a ton of debris from cooking a quiche the way I make it. You have a pan and spoon, of course, and a cutting board. And normally one knife, I use two this time, and a measuring cup. And that's, oh, I'll also have a bowl and a whisk when we're ready. I'm just letting the bacon continue to, air out, crisp up, and the onions to drain a minute. Normally, this is about the time I'd be waiting on my oven to be ready to preheat, but I started at the beginning of the video just so I didn't forget to tell you to start it on 425. So, got a minute to kill. Okay, so I've spread out the bacon and the onions, and what looked like a lot when I chopped everything up and before cooking, as you can see now, really isn't that much. The bacon cooks way down, as do the onions. And if the onions are cooked well enough like these here, they aren't pungent and they're not hot, they're just kind of sweet without being completely caramelized. So the next step is the cheese. I'm just gonna dump it in the middle and then spread it out. Okay, so the cheese is all evened out. All right, so now we are going to pour the egg mixture. I'm doing this looking through a camera lens, so I hope I don't. Yeah. The cheese is floating. All right, what I like about these deep dish ones, even if you don't make a deep dish, is that it doesn't overflow. When I use the regular size pie, the glass pie pans, it overflows into my oven. Now that means that the edges of this, because I start at 425, are going to get pretty brown, probably more brown to some people's liking, so you could put foil on the edge. I don't. Okay, I almost spilled it getting it in the oven, so it's the one side of the crust is covered in egg batter. That'll be interesting. And yes, that is a pizza stone down there, and it does catch anything that drips down. We just keep it in there because it's so heavy to move around and in and out of the oven. So let's get going. Okay, so we're at 425, and we're going to set the timer for 15 minutes, and then we will reduce the heat and continue cooking. Okay, groceries are back in the fridge. Dishes are washed, all in less than 5. Okay, so we're going to turn off that timer, and then we are going to reduce from 425 down to 300. So we're going to cook on a much cooler oven, and we're going to set the timer again. Now, I could set it for 30 minutes, but I use that fat-free half and half. So usually I think it takes a little bit longer, a little bit more to set up. So, oops, timer. So instead of 30, I'm going to go with 35. But it could be really, depending on the ingredients you use, how much stuff you put in there. It could be anywhere from 30 to 45 more minutes. So we'll see if it looks good in 35 minutes. Okay, our 35 minutes is up. So we're gonna first check. Well, actually, before I toothpick it, let's just jiggle it. Okay, it's solid like that. Because sometimes if it's not done, there's wet in the middle, kind of. I'm going to stick this in. Came out pretty clean. So I say we can take it out. Okay, so now it's just going to sit on this little cooling rack here. Pie-sized cooling rack, which I love those little cooling racks. And let it sit for like 15 minutes so that when it's cut, it's a little more firm. And the crust didn't get too brown. I'm surprised. But the last time I had a crust, it came up over the pie pan a lot, or up higher, I should say, less covered by the filling. And that's probably why it got so brown.